When Alexander was a teenager and only 16 years old, Philip, his father, left him as a regent. A regent is someone who rules in place of the king when the king is absent. In this case, Philip went on an expedition against Byzantium and entrusted Alexander with the responsibility of ruling Macedonia. During this time, one of the nearby Thracian tribes, the Maedi, took the opportunity to rebel. Little they knew this was everything Alexander wanted. As whenever his father managed to do something successful, Alexander was not happy. He actually complained to his friends that by the time Philip would die, there would be nothing left for him to conquer. So he took this Maedi rebellion as a chance to prove himself. While I would love to present you with a detailed account of this battle, there are simply no sources giving us those details, and we only know the final result of this story. Alexander didn't only storm their town and drove out the barbarous inhabitants, but he also founded a new colony, naming it after himself, Alexandropolis. We can safely say that Philip was pleased with this, as 2 years later, at the Battle of Chaeronea, where he fought against Thebes and Athens combined, Alexander had earned even greater responsibility and he basically won that battle for his father. And luckily, there we have details. But before that, it's time to understand how the Macedonian army had evolved by this time. Philip innovated this army, which allowed him to expand his kingdom significantly. Here are some of the most important changes. To gain an advantage over other armies of the time, Philip made their equipment lighter, allowing them to maneuver on the field more quickly, change formations easily, and march faster over longer distances. This change included making their shields smaller. Now you might think this is actually a disadvantage, but he also increased the length of their spears from 2-3 meters to 4-6 meters. If your enemies can't reach you with their weapons, you don't need as much armor. Basically, in those days, you can say that who had the longer stick won. One guy with a long spear might not be a serious issue, but an organized unit of soldiers with long spears, creating a wall of them, would be really hard to penetrate, especially if your weapons are shorter. So, you can see the problem here. Philip also added an engineering corps to his army, capable of building siege weapons like catapults and siege towers. He created a sophisticated intelligence system that included infiltration, disinformation, espionage, and scouting. Additionally, he revolutionized the use of cavalry, turning it into a flexible and decisive force on the battlefield. Up to this point, organizing cavalry for quick, improvised maneuvers was challenging. To address this, Philip organized them into a triangular formation. Why this new formation solved so many issues? Well, the first man would take the lead position at the tip of the triangle, with 2 other men on horses directly behind him. Each of these men would also have 2 horsemen behind them, forming a cascading line that extended back in a triangular shape. If the first man wanted the formation to turn left, he would simply steer his horse in that direction. The second man, following directly behind, would then mirror the first man's movement, turning left as well. This sequence would continue, with each rider following the lead of the man directly in front of him, allowing the entire formation to smoothly and quickly change direction. This triangular formation was highly maneuverable and flexible, something that was much more difficult to achieve with traditional rectangular or square formations. In those more rigid formations, a man on the far left wouldn't necessarily know what the man on the far right was doing, leading to confusion and disorder during maneuvers. Even if you placed the leader at the front, as soon as the group attempted to turn, the soldiers would lose their alignment, potentially trampling over each other and breaking formation. The triangle formation solved this problem by ensuring that each man only had to follow the movement of the man directly ahead of him, maintaining order and allowing for swift, coordinated maneuvers on the battlefield. Alexander was leading the cavalry, taking the front position in the triangle. At first sight, this might seem like a dangerous position because, being at the forefront, he was indeed more exposed to arrows and blows. However, the psychological effect of this triangle formation charging towards you was significant. Even though you might have the chance to strike Alexander, the fear of being trampled by those following closely behind would overwhelm you. Faced with such a formation, the natural instinct would be to run, as its spearhead shape creates the illusion of an opening to escape, rather than compelling you to stand and fight, with the riders not charging at you all at once. This psychological pressure not only caused chaos in the enemy ranks, but also made any gap in their lines far easier to exploit. As the soldiers broke formation in an attempt to flee, the triangular cavalry could quickly penetrate and widen these gaps. The momentum of the formation, combined with the fear it instilled, ensured that even a small opening could be turned into a significant breach, allowing the cavalry to drive deeper into the enemy's forces with devastating effect. These were the reforms Philip made to the Macedonian army, and so it became the best army of the time. In addition to all these changes, they also had something more important than everything previously mentioned: experience and discipline. Why is this so important, and why does it matter more than the number of troops or even equipment? Contrary to popular belief, in battles like this, most deaths didn't occur during the battle itself. The real killing began once a formation was disrupted and the enemy started to flee. To run faster, soldiers would often turn their backs and discard some of their equipment, making them most vulnerable at that moment. This is why it was extremely important to have disciplined, experienced, and motivated men who would hold their ground and equipment. Now, in order to understand this even better, imagine you are a hoplite with a shield in your left hand and a spear in your right. Naturally, your left side is better protected by the shield, but your right side, even with a weapon, is more exposed. Let's say you're in the second line of the battle formation, toward the right. If the man in front of you loses his nerve and starts to run, before you even have time to move forward and close the gap, the man to his left might suddenly find his right side more exposed, get scared, and run as well. The far right man, seeing a widening gap to his left, could also panic and follow them. Now, if the man directly to your right sees this happening, and let's say one of those three men running is his brother, he might decide to run too, leaving you even more exposed. The man directly to your left sees this and decides he's not going to risk his life if others won't, and runs too. Even if you are brave enough to stay, the soldiers behind you would need to close the gap and step forward. But would they? You are already short of warriors, making your position weaker. At this point, with both sides exposed, let's say you suddenly start to worry that you didn't check if you locked the door before you left home, so you decide to run back and check, as safety is important to you. Now, as soldiers see the right side running, they might not know what's happening there, but can see only the final result. They might assume that side is breaking because of the heavy killing happening there, and they lose their nerve, leaving the right flank open for envelopment, turning this into a real problem and a general flight. With a deeper understanding of the army's mindset and tactics, we are prepared to face the Battle of Chaeronea, but we'll save that confrontation for the next episode. More videos are in the works right now, and if you enjoyed this one, subscribe and press the bell button to get notified when the next video is released.